The World Bank has stated that the federal government of Nigeria did not take any concerted action towards curbing inflation in 2021, despite the shock pushing an estimated 8 million Nigerians below the poverty line. The Washington-based bank said this in the latest edition of its Nigeria Development Update Reports 2021. It said double-digit inflation rates are depressing economic activity. And also, recall the central bank had recently projected that the country's inflation rate would drop to single-digit in 2022 with the full implementation of its recent policies designed to boost different sectors of the economy. Right, so let's take a closer look at Nigeria's inflationary figure and analyzing the World Bank's recent position on the Nigeria state of economy. So let's bring in our guest now, Mr. Segun Elemo, is the ED Paradigm Leadership Supportive Initiative. He joins us via the telephone now to make sense of this development. Thank you for joining us, Mr. Elemo. We appreciate your time, kindly.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Yeah. So, with this World Bank statement or position on Nigeria's state of economy, what is your take on that? They are blaming the Nigerian government for the rise in the inflation figure. The price of food has gone up as well, talking about food inflation has gone up. And then they also talk about the state of economy in terms of poverty, the purchasing power of the average Nigerian. So what's your take on this?
Yeah, I would agree with the World Bank because whatever is happening with, in the local economy, it's as a result of implementation of economic policies. And the institution or the authority responsible for implementing, policies, relating to what the subject we're discussing is the Nigerian government. So ultimately, the buck stops on the table of the Nigerian government, and the government has to be responsible for whatever is happening to the economy.
Now, the World Bank warned that without any decisive action, the average inflation rate would not reach the single-digit target of the central bank by the end of 2022. If you recall, the central bank set a single-digit inflation target for year 2022. So how feasible is this?
Well, I assume that let's take from where the central bank started in 2022. The first MPC meeting, for instance, held last month, and the bank maintained all parameters. So it neither increased interest rate nor reduced interest rate. So it stayed in the middle, just as it stayed throughout the course of 2021. I would assume that the bank is looking, the Apex Bank now is observing the both local economic climate as well as international activities regarding economic issues. But the good side, or let me not say the good side, the upside, to the assumption of the Apex Bank is that the price of crude, has increased a little bit owing to the Russia-Ukraine issue that is currently happening. So if that continues, perhaps maybe the pressure on the forex market would likely reduce. As such, the continued weakening of the naira may ease out gradually. If that happens, it means that the disposable income of the average citizens will gain, some appreciable value, and that means that inflation would have, reduced a little bit in the market. So there are a few things that the bank is trying to leverage on. And then perhaps the indication that the CBN governor gave that we're likely to hit the harvest season for food. And if that happens and we're able to harvest, more and push more products from the farm to the market with little or no middlemen at all in the process. It means that the price of food in the market will, somewhat, reduce, which means that people can buy more with their current, income. But that also in itself is dependent on a number of factors. For instance, the security situation of the country. So even when we're expecting the farm produce increases, it's still subject to some extraordinary factors like insecurity and like middlemen that continues to hijack the product from the farm before it gets to the market. So there are a few things, like I said, the bank is trying to leverage on, but all of those factors are subjective. And until we get to the reality of it, we may not be able to say exactly what our experiences will be. But I mean, give it to the CBN, the rice pyramid was launched recently, and we're hoping that all those bags in the pyramid will find their way into the market, thereby easing the pressure on the consumer.
We'll get back to some of the issues raised by the World Bank in a jiffy, but let's talk more now that you've talked about the issue of food prices that may likely go up given the harvest season ahead of us. But how easy, because a supply chain is a challenge in this part of the world, the movement of food between the producers in the farm and, of course, the final consumer is a challenge. How do we bridge this gap, and how easy do you think this will be, moving these goods to the hinterland or the urban settlement and the cities as well?
Well, I think it's a challenge. It's always been a challenge. I mean, I was, listening to, an analyst recently who was trying to bring to light the waste in our food production chain. That even before the food, gets out from the farm to the market, we've almost lost a significant percentage of the food produce. And that in itself, is affecting the economy in so many ways. For instance, it will affect the GDP. It will affect, disposable income of an average citizen. It will push inflation upwards. CPI index will increase. So if we don't put the necessary logistics in place, which we are trying to do by increasing transportation infrastructure in the country, we also need to improve our storage facilities for food. And the thing is that we need to support, farmers. For instance, there must be some kind of, program or policy of government that buys the product from the farmer as they produce. If they don't have, for instance, logistics to store, then there must be some kind of arrangement that buys the products, the produce from them directly and store, in such structure that allows us for mass storage, of food produce. That in itself will limit the waste that we're experiencing currently, with regards to, inefficient storage system for food produce. So if we're able to do that, and then we put the right logistics in place in terms of transportation, and the transportation logistics, for instance, is dependent on a few other things. It's not just to put the rail system in place. Even the logistics from moving the food produce from the farm to the rail station itself is another thing entirely. So you will be looking at the road infrastructure as well, not just the rail infrastructure. So all of these things tied together. I think that the most important thing is that we become more responsible with the use of public funds to scale some of these infrastructure needs that we require. If we're able to do that, all of these things will work together in themselves and then give us the desired outcome that we want. If we want food inflation, for instance, to go down, like I've highlighted, there are a few things that need to be in place. We need to look at transportation logistics, we need to look at storage facilities. We need to look at the issue about middlemen, like the governor, the CBN, spoke about. We need to look at a lot of things. There are many of those issues that we have currently that are self-inflicted. If we're able to limit these issues that I've highlighted, you would realize that things will improve in the market itself.
Okay. I want us to wrap it up with these. We saw food inflation rising to an all-time high last May, going by 22% before dropping to 17.37% in December. Inflation figure is scheduled to be released by next week, and that's when we expect that the Nigeria Bureau of Statistics will release that latest figure. What are your expectations as we wrap up now?
It's likely to increase, but possibly towards the end towards the middle of the year and towards the end of the year, we might likely, see a decline. But I don't think we're going to see that decline as early as the next, figures are published. Those decline that we expect or we're looking out for, it's also dependent on a number of factors. For instance, you would say that in fact, it should have even been the increase would have been unimaginable if, for instance, the subsidy on petrol was removed as contemplated by the federal government. So the fact that the federal government has pushed that decision to sometime in the future now, which in any case is inevitable, will sort of stabilize the system, the economy a little bit, right, and not push inflation upwards as much as it would have been if that policy had been implemented as contemplated. But the thing is, the issue about subsidy removal, I know that is another story entirely. Right. That we can put to test of discussion at another time. But for what we're expecting from NBS, I don't see a decline as quickly as the next figures are published. Possibly towards the middle of the year and towards the latter part of the year, if the right attitude on the part of policymakers, manifest and sort of cushion the effect of what we're experiencing currently.